What's going on, guys? It's your boy, White Pool Brian here. And it's been a little minute, man. It's been a little minute. Basically, just been working, going to the gym, my normal routine stuff, but it's been more packed and more condensed. A lot of things just kind of ramping up. Life is, to kind of compact it, shorten it up, right? So, yeah, it's been a little minute, guys. I just wanted to make a video because I know there was a couple of things that like kind of crossed my mind this week. It's been a little monotonous, but in that little time, there's been little moments of quiet and like shower thoughts that come to mind that figured that somebody out there would be resonating with. But I was talking with my dad actually, and he's kind of my dad as I became like more of an adult and traversed into adulthood. He's became more so one of my best friends because we obviously we share a lot of qualities genetically, but also we have just enough similarities in the way that we think that we do bounce off ideas out of each other. So I'm kind of more grounded. My dad's a little bit more loose, but it comes from a similar place where we both kind of see the same vision of things ultimately. So I always like talking to my dad. But anyways, we were talking, and one of the things that we said in the conversation that I kind of told him is that I feel like we're so inundated nowadays by so many things that we can consume. And people suffer a lot of the times because they consume so much more than they create. It's almost this weird new age form of gluttony where but it's in the information. It's not like with physical food. So you're gluttonous to information because you're always seeking answers, but you're never creating something that somebody else can consume, and it kind of formalizes you. And even though it can influence you to be the creator of the said consumption, right? You inevitably just stay stuck in that cycle, right? Like, how many people have eaten McDonald's before versus how many people own McDonald's franchises, restaurants, right? And obviously that's different in that scale, but it just kind of like, if so many people have like been enticed by this thing, then why don't more people at least do it in that aspect of things, right? And you could argue that there's always going to be people that are going to be more. There's always going to be more consumers than there are creators because it does take, I believe, a certain kind of person with different qualities. Not really the focus of the video, but I think about nowadays how there's so many people out there that they don't know what it is to create something because they do get scared, right? It's a very fearful thing to put yourself out there amongst your family, your friends, amongst people who otherwise you would kind of sit back in the crowd and see what they do before you would put yourself in a position to do something similar. And I don't know why, but I just have, like, as I've gotten older, really have always been this way at my core. But as I shook the cobwebs or the chains of those social pressures of what people would think off of me, I tend to realize that people don't really care in the long term. Like they care in the moment. They may comment or say things even behind your back. And also, by the way, like, I don't know why this has to be said, but if you're talking with somebody, right, about somebody, or just if you have somebody that you're talking with and they are talking about somebody else in a particular way, just assume that they are also going to talk about you in that way. Like, I don't know why this is such a hard concept for people to understand, but you will be way better off if you understand that the way people treat other people is definitely the way they're going to treat you at some point. It's just a matter of time. But anyways, back to my prior point, right? I kind of lost my train of thought there, but if you're in a situation where we're creating so little, right? We're just kind of selling ourselves away for people to just constantly consume to us, right? And we're just fed this information and those bits and pieces constantly, but we're not actually doing anything about it. So I don't know. It's just something that my dad and I kind of had a side conversation about. And, I think a lot of the inspirations that I have in my life, or just the content of the things that I consume, I have to give thanks to those things. Like, I was talking with one of my friends, and he doesn't listen. Like, he's never listened to Nas. He's never listened to Jay-Z. And a lot of people kind of write off rap as a very boom bappy, oh, it's money, sex, drugs, and all that stuff. And yeah, like, that's what's popularized, what's out there. But I naturally always gravitated to like Guru, Gangstar, Nas, more esoteric, introspective kind of things, right? And that's good because I was thinking at a time where people weren't thinking as much, right? When you're younger, you just want to feel so much. You just want to experience and do things. You don't want to think as much. That's why we start hating school, right? I realize it's not that we hate school, more so that we're just in a position where we're forced to learn. And, our ability to feel things is being stripped away because we're sitting somewhere and we're going to have to think more so. And, that's kind of the trouble people find themselves in, is that they get programmed to think all the time and not to really feel, right? That's what school at least does for us. And so we're pushed into this world now where we don't wanna feel. We just want to think. At least some of us do, and we find ourselves in these positions where we want to just dissect everything and analyze and tear things down and meticulous down to the finest grain. And there's a time and place for that, sure. Like, for example, you're tracking macros, or you're tracking your food or your diet, your workouts. Yeah, that's an appropriate thing to think about, because you're sharing an extensive amount of time and effort into something. You might as well want to do it right. But there's also, right, like bodybuilding or even fitness, you have to feel like there's a sense of intuition. Like, just because the program's telling you, okay, you have to do this movement now, but you don't really like that movement, or you don't really feel it doing anything for you, but the paper says it, so you got to do it. It's like, no, I thank you for the guidance to the extent that you have, but I feel as though this is not providing me the value that you may be advertising to me, or you may be inflicting upon myself. And that's kind of the inspiration that I took, because when I first started lifting too, I didn't really feel. I just thought all the time, right? And I think as men, we're taught to just think about shit all the time. We're taught to think things through, and that's fine, right? When you're getting pulled in that direction so hard, and that's just kind of where you're supposed to be at. But then it's like, okay, now it's time to feel, right? You're trying to walk and reason with a person that is not necessarily, thinking, right? That's hard. That's hard to walk along that line, because you've been programmed and trained for so long to just think, don't feel, think. And then it's like, now that starts trickling down into your own friendships, because, deep down, everybody wants to kind of have that, momentary shit where they don't want a solution to a problem. They just want to talk it out. They know the solution or whatever. And I've been so guilty of trying to help people and provide solutions all the fucking time, and not really understand the extent that sometimes it's not really about just always talking and always thinking and always trying to be of service in that sense. Sometimes it's just being that kind of that rigid wall. Like, you just want to be a wall to somebody that they can kind of lean on, because they just got shot in the shoulder, right? And they just need to lean on. There's a game on PlayStation 2 called The Getaway or something like that. And it's kind of like a GTA inspired game. It was kind of a spinoff, not from Rockstar or anything, a different company. Anyways, in the game, you get shot up. It's a third person shooter, and you get shot up. And in order to heal, you have to lean yourself against this wall. And then your health will start to increase, and you're panting and breathing. It takes time. But, that, I don't know why I think of that, but that's how I think of whenever it's and it's hard to really understand when that is appropriate. It's hard to really sit there and be like, okay, this person's coming to me with this issue, what do I do? Because I was always on go. There were problems in my life, in my parents' lives, or in my family's lives, and slowly but surely, in the shadows of it, I became kind of the that person that people relied upon to find the solution to the problem. Or whenever I was, the standards were different. My brothers had standards for their grades that I didn't have. My mom expected more out of me, because she understood that I had a higher sense or frame of kind of thinking. Not that I was smarter. It's just that the way that I was ingesting the context of my realities and my experiences were more inundated to think and logically reason. And I would honestly attribute a lot of my personal success and growth to that. But I also had to experience more feeling, right? So whenever I was like exposed to alcohol for the first time, it was like prom night. And but from that point on, that's when I kind of was like more, I wouldn't say into alcohol, but I was more open to the idea of being able to drink. And that made me less retarded. That made me less thinking in the thinking space, right? Uh, or I would say it made me more retarded because I wasn't thinking as much. And that's what we kind of need to do is like feel more. Being retarded is more so about leading with the way that you feel, right? And with a touch and sprinkles of logic. You got to have common sense too. And I've realized that a lot of my relationships that I don't want to say I sabotage, but I would say that, maybe may not have been as appropriate for me. I didn't realize that that person was more of a feeling person and I was more of a thinking person. And I'm trying to, I've said before, like you can always change your personality. You're never just as one facet person from birth that is always destined to act or behave a certain kind of way. So I've been really trying to, kind of interact in that space more, like just, not think about stuff as much, be a little bit more bold and ballsy with things like, I work in a very technical environment. And so it's hard to shut my brain off at those moments, which I'm sure some of you can relate because, like video games and thinking and strategies and all those little pieces, we have to think. But a part of us is like, that's where the intuition is like, it's not coming from my brain. It's coming from like my gut. And you're feeling that. You're not necessarily thinking that. That's so weird. But I feel like if we just leaned on that shit more, we would get out of this, like sometimes this, I wouldn't say this decrepit, but I feel like as though sometimes there's this kind of abyss, right? Like that is unspoken. And sometimes you find yourself and you find yourself wound up there. You don't understand how. And I think it's because, there you go. I think it's because, I was just say I feel is because there's not a lot of spaces for us to really be able to feel things. And before we realize it, it's like whenever you're drinking and the alcohol is like, you're warm, it's warming you up, but on the outside, you may be really, really cold. And by the time the alcohol starts wearing off, you're like, holy shit, I'm freezing. You're like, damn, it's cold out here. By that time, it may be kind of too late for you to start putting on a jacket and all that stuff and getting warm before it gets or getting warmer before it's already too cold. So now you're gonna have to suck it up, And hey, if it was raining, right? Now it's like, and it's cold, and you didn't realize it. Now it's like I gotta dry up. Then it's like I gotta warm, put on a jacket, put on some stuff to warm me up. So very quickly you start getting in the position to where you have to do a lot more work. And I don't know. I don't think that I find myself in this position. It's just hard for me to switch my brain. Like I want to get used to like switching from, dancing salsa to dancing bachata quickly. Like I don't want to even think about it. My body just goes and goes, and I don't, because that's our skills for interpersonal relationships too. Like that's kind of the part where I feel like a lot of women lean on more than the logical part, and a lot of guys lean on the other side. It's a common thing, and I think that it's hard because it's like I feel in a sense I want to say emotionally immature, but because I know how to like regulate the emotions. Well, maybe I actually don't. Now that I think about it, right? Maybe we actually don't. Maybe because we analyze our feelings and all this stuff so much, we don't actually give it time to process, Like in the Discord, Eli sent out a thing. For those of you who don't know, I'm in a Discord, in a High Thumos Discord. Check it out with Elijah Long. He posted a question that was like, how do you handle problems nowadays? Are you just numb to it, or you just handle it and feel it in the moment, or and a lot of the guys, surprisingly enough, are like, I'm just numb to to things. And I just was like, what a shitty experience. Like you just kind of numb to being sad or feeling frustrated or feeling like powerless even. These are all enablers of our lives that inspire things to change and come out of us. And I think my answer was something along the lines of I just process things better because I do. Like I know when I'm feeling sad. I know when I'm feeling angry. I know when I'm feeling envious. I know when I'm feeling frustrated even. And the shitty part about it is that I it's delayed. It's delayed so much that I kind of like I don't know why. Like, it's kind of like whenever you're drinking a really thick shake and it all settles and it's like super thick, but you gotta like shake it around and swirl it for it to kind of like for it to go back to its drinkable state. I guess that's kind of how I feel in the sense of processing emotions. It's just that maybe it's like it bottles up or I don't process it very well. But I also feel like I don't, maybe we just don't cope with things very well. Like we have the gym, we have these outlets, but from a sense of stress, relieving of stress, that's one outlet, that's one facet. But what about like, damn, dude, like I kind of feel a lot of weight right now, or I feel as though how am I gonna get through these things, or how am I like I have these feelings and I know everything's gonna be okay, but I can't shake that feeling off of me. It's kind of more so that, and because it's so much of a logical process that happens there, it doesn't really get fine tuned out. And I've gotten a lot better at that. I used to be so shitty, and even to the point where in my own friendships and my own relationships, I started realizing like I project a lot of the, like, hey, tough shit, get over it. And everybody has that. And definitely that needs to be said. There are just some people that always want to fucking feel like victims and, always want to be like, woe is me and all this stuff. And look, I understand that, like, I got to give people space to have that at least for a little bit, right? Somebody doing that all the time is different than somebody just wanting to have that release. And one of the things I realized in like my own last relationships, because I've been having more perspective about that, is that at first I had that sense, I had that sense of being able to have that space for somebody else to release. And then over time, I just became so bogged down by my own needing of release, and I wasn't able to make space for that person. And granted, that person was also not, it wasn't it wasn't easy. Like they were leaning on me to everything in that sense. And I know why, because I feel like I'm a solid person, if I'm able to say that humbly. I'm a solid person where I can lean on in that regard, but I'm also a person. So as guys, I think that we can sit here and quote Marcus Aurelius and all this stoicism stuff all day. That's fine. Marcus Aurelius was the emperor of Rome, right? Marcus Aurelius had to navigate, and he had to lead millions of people under his discretion, under enemies, under people that would come and kill everybody or come and kill him for his position, constantly scheme. He needed some kind of framework and system to keep himself balanced as possible. And a lot of us aren't emperors of Rome. We don't deal with that kind of same day-to-day hysteria or day-to-day bureaucracy or whatever. And that's not to say that downplays the story or the philosophy even, but just like why be so married to it that it doesn't, like, you really don't want to feel anything, really? Thousands upon thousands of years of having these reactions, chemical reactions to things, and responses to situations, and you just don't want that, because you heard some guy on TikTok quote Marcus Aurelius, Ryan Holiday, whatever. He's like, the Romans and the Stoics didn't believe in. It's like, who cares? Like, why do I care about what the Stoics thought and did and what they preached? Again, I'm only saying that because it's just sounds so bogged down. I don't think as a man we can really express ourselves emotionally as our counterparts, right? However, we do need to understand that we have some kind of outlet. We need some kind of outlet for those things. And there's like men's mental health awareness month. And I'm gonna be honest, dude, it's like not that many people care. Not that many people care about men's mental health. And I'm not trying to say that because it's like, oh, like nobody cares and we should care more. It's just nobody cares, right? So, like you have to create you have to create something that will allow people to care, or some kind of a delegation or a group or some kind of something to where people can at least care, like that's the answer. Nobody cares. It's like, but that's not the solution, right? And so a lot of the times guys will just break down after a certain point of their lives because they just realize this, and it's so bad over time. But I'm just sharing some of the free thoughts. I think, I get so I don't know, frustrated, but right now, like as a single guy, um, I see beautiful women and I see people that I want to approach or whatever. But I also like me at 25 or at 25, 24, I would have been like, nah, I got a relationship. I'm single. It's green. Let's get it. I would have just bogged my mind down to trying to escape the reality that, damn, dude, it does feel kind of shitty. There are a lot of good perks about being single, but then memories start to kick in, and you think about the person, and I'm just at a stage where I understand that it's important for me to feel these things through and not leverage the company of somebody else to lean on for that. Because yeah, sure, it'll help sometimes, but I'm still indebted to that feeling at the end of it all. Like I'm still like, it's just a cover up, right? Like you're just sweeping shit under the rug. It's still a lump that'll eventually start to grow. And so, I know it's like everybody just has certain time frames for things. I think that if I'm being honest, like, because I've been kind of doing things a certain way, like I've been like kind of not distracting myself in a sense, even with work, into my own life with things that, I'm trying to do everything but experience life. And that's exactly what I need to do. It's kind of weird how this became like a very much just a spat it out. But, I know some of you will relate to this, and it's just kind of me processing my thoughts or things that I've been thinking about. But yeah, maybe I just want to experience life overall. And I'm so bothered by sometimes the way people want to experience life because it just seems so performative. Like, there's people that are performative with church and religion. And, one thing that always people I say performative with is like traveling and like, oh yeah, I want to go to here. I want to go over there. I want to do this. I want to do that. It's like, that's cool. Like I like traveling in a sense, but I don't like the feeling that, I don't know. I don't, maybe this is a topic for another video. So, because I see it's wrapping up. So I'll pencil that in, traveling and why that kind of bothers me. But guys, thank you for watching the video. I appreciate if you listen all the way through. Like the video if you liked it, don't if you don't. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.